I hope Michele Bachmann doesn't mind me sharing this story, but I've met with all of the presidential candidates, and I can't say that I'm friends with any of them. I don't know if any of them would claim to be my friend, but I know all of them, and I think most of them are good, decent people. But there's really been one candidate that I've had 2 meetings with that I've had this this same reaction, and both meetings have been with Michele Bachmann, but one of them was just recently, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Michele, but Michele came over to my house last week because I wanted to ask her a few questions, and she was kind enough to come over to the house. She sat on my couch, and we just talked. And for about 45 minutes to an hour, she is the only candidate that did not break eye contact with me at the answering of every question. When I would talk to her about stuff, I never once got the feeling she was giving me the answer I wanted to hear. And I knew that she actually meant every word. That is important. I also think that she understands the time that we live in, and well, let me ask you, Michele, are you doing this because you, why are you running for president? Let me just ask you that. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running for president because during the last 5 years when I've been fighting in Washington, I've seen that the time clock is ticking, and I really believe this is it. This is the last exit ramp, and we have one opportunity to try and pull this out, or I think that we could be looking at economic collapse. I don't mean to be overly melodramatic, but this is what I've seen in Washington.
You look like well, you could say that on my show, and you still look like the moderate.
Well, that plus, also I sit on the Intelligence Committee. Obviously, I'm not sharing classified secrets, but based upon what I'm seeing happening around the world, events are happening very, very quickly at a fast pace right now. And I'm probably even more concerned about what I'm seeing dealing with national security threats than I am even with the economy. So that should tell you something. I'm very concerned about how the events are coming together in a way that is unlike anything that we've seen in modern times.
Michele, I'm concerned that we have a Congress, both Republican and Democrat, that will build a steel little cage for everybody. And Abraham Lincoln grabbed power, but he released it. And I'm not convinced that we have anybody in power on left or right that have that character.
Well, and character is what the founders looked at. If you read the Federalist Papers, when they talked about qualifications for the presidency, they weren't talking about who had the most money, who had the most education, who had the most influence or land holdings. It was about depth of character. Who was the individual inside? What wise people to consider that that's really the basis of leadership.
Okay, I'm going to be some real, just frank questions here, and I'm sorry if they make you uncomfortable, but I doubt they will. I've watched you for a long time, and I've liked you for a long time. I just think you're really good. However, when you first got into the political race, I thought, oh, geez, has she sold out? She's saying things now? She's just, you started to sound like a politician. You started to sound like a candidate. And I think Americans, this is why Herman Cain did so well for a while, is, that weird smoking ad worked because people were like, he obviously doesn't have any handlers.
What's that?
Yeah, he doesn't have any handlers. And people want to know that somebody is shooting straight with him, doesn't have handlers, and is going to get in there and actually do what they say. How can you convince somebody, or what can you say, to let people know that when you say, I'm going to do this, you're not going to get in there and you're not going to sell out?
Well, I've done it my whole life. I'm 55 years old, and I'm not here promoting. I'm just saying I just released a book this week called Core of Conviction, and it demonstrates a lifetime of commitment to doing what I say and saying what I mean. For the last 5 years in Washington, I think this is one example. I was not the best friend of Republican leadership, put it that way. I took on George Bush. I took him on No Child Left Behind. I took him on amnesty for illegal aliens. I took him on the $700 billion bailout. I was their worst nightmare behind closed doors. I took on my own Republican leadership when it came to the budgets because I said the House of Representatives holds the power of the purse. Why would we give the president a dime if it means funding Obamacare? We can't have socialized medicine in this country. And I was shut out from that discussion.
How corrupt is it? Go ahead.
Well, all I was going to say is that I stand on principle, and that's what I've always stood on. And these issues that we're dealing with right now, they're so far beyond partisanship. They really are. And any time I've ever been successful, it's been bringing people together. I did that in Minnesota with education reform. I brought Democrats, Republicans, Independents, people who weren't even political at all together. I did that with Obamacare, fighting Obamacare, because Democrats don't want socialized medicine either.
But here's the problem.
That's what I want to do.
But I don't think that I don't think you put this genie back in the bottle. You have, when you have people that are supporting Occupy Wall Street in the numbers that they are, which is still, low, but shockingly high for a common sense world, and you have the unions and all of that, they're ripping the fabric of this nation apart. You can't compromise. Back before Woodrow Wilson, we could compromise because we both believed the same thing. We believed it for a while. Even during 9/11, we all stood arm in arm on the steps of the Capitol, and you guys all sang, I don't know, the Star Spangled Banner, and we all thought we loved the country, but that's not true. How do you compromise with people who see the country as an oppressor and evil, and capitalism is evil? How do you compromise? How do you bring people together?
Well, it's an education function. It's explaining the ideal to people of what it is we're trying to accomplish. That's what I did in Minnesota in education reform. I cast a vision for a big idea, and people followed. The same with Obamacare. I explained to people what it was going to mean to them, and I had Democrats and Independents come out and help us in this. That's what we need out of our next president, to express that level of leadership, to explain to people what's at stake and what can be done to help the country survive. In my opinion, Glenn, that's where we're at right now. We're looking at survival of the country, and we're that close to the edge. And I think that's what I want to do, is to be able to explain to people and draw them in together, because most people are not anarchists. Most people are not Occupy Wall Streeters. Most people want the country to go on. And they want someone to explain to them how we can do that. That's what I want to do.
Earlier today, I talked about